Hi there. Welcome to another episode of RestorationCast. We are continuing our series entitled In the Bible. And we're talking about things that seem out of place in Scripture. The first week we talked about cultural context and how that applies to all kinds of different things. Last week we talked about Abraham and his habit of lying about
Abraham's a liar.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we titled it. Abraham's a liar.
And it's pretty accurate.
It was accurate, wasn't it, son?
It was. And this week we're talking about Moses and circumcision.
What?
So, circumcision.
You kind of mumbled that. Circumcision. Circumcise my son? That has to be what Moses said to his wife. Honey. What? Of course, when you get the whole context here, it's a rather complicated story.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for you to explain it to me because I haven't got a clue.
Well, we'll see if I do either. So.
Gabriel's not been feeling well lately, friends, and so if he does not joke with me as he should, I will slap him on your behalf. But he hadn't been feeling good, and so just so you know. How you doing, son?
Okay.
Got a temperature?
Last I checked, I did.
I thought so. But here he is, sucking it up, my boy, sucking it up for RestorationCast.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Yeah.
the man.
So these are your questions. If you're one of our SBS students, take a screenshot of these or whatever you do, and we'll try to answer all of them.
Every last one of them we're going to try to answer. Well, I don't even know what we're talking about. So what I'm going to do is provide color so that you feel like you should answer them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Gabriel, you need to be in the screen. I know you don't feel good, but that doesn't mean you need to escape us here. It seemed like I set it up here poorly. I got a little more than me. And I'm thinking if I cut a little more off of me, it won't be as obvious that I'm fat. Of course,
That might do it.
If I do this, folks won't even know that I'm ugly. See what I'm saying? I may talk over here. All right, let's get started.
That's an idea.
Original story.
Yeah. So we're talking again about Moses and this idea of circumcision. The actual main story is in Exodus chapter 4, verses 24 through 26. But for a little context, we'll go back a little bit farther than that. Pretty much what happens up until this point is the classic story that everybody tells all the time, And so Pharaoh, a new Pharaoh comes into power who didn't know Joseph. And so because of that, he doesn't know Abraham's family. He thinks of them as being this threat to his power because of how many kids they're having. And so he tries to put a stop to that by instituting kind of this...
Child killing.
Yeah, exactly. And so he has the midwives for the Hebrews go in there, and he tells them, kill all the male Hebrew babies, but they don't. And so God blesses them because...
Love those midwives. Stuck it to the man, what they did.
They did. Yeah, exactly. And then Pharaoh says, okay, we're just going to throw them all in the river.
Put them in the Nile.
Yeah, because I don't know why that solves the problem.
Yeah, if they're not going to kill them right out the womb, it's a little more process to walk them to the Nile and dump them in.
Yeah.
But he thinks honestly, that Pharaoh wasn't real right.
No,
I mean,
he wasn't.
He had plenty of chances. God decimated the country and his army, and it's like Pharaoh still, the light bulb never came on.
Well, that's assuming the same Pharaoh is in power by the time Moses comes back.
Either way, lights on and the house is empty.
Yeah, so Pharaoh says all the baby boys need to be thrown into the river, and they're going to drown. And Moses' mother, she gives birth to him, and she looks at him and she's like, man, this is a beautiful baby. and so I'm not going to kill him.
No, because what mother thinks their baby's ugly?
Yeah, exactly. But apparently beauty is a prerequisite to life. So
I need to keep my head off screen or something. Oh dear, I didn't know that.
Well, I'm not saying it. It's the Bible.
The Bible.
Saying it.
And I like it when he quotes the Bible.
Yeah.
Go ahead, son. I'm right here beside you.
So anyway, after that, she puts Moses in a basket and ships him off down the Nile River, basically doing what she was told to do by Pharaoh, except in a way that doesn't kill Moses.
Yeah, what's that about? I guess it's kind of just trusting God.
Yeah,
set him adrift and see what happens.
Yeah, it's kind of an odd story. I don't know what kind of plan that is. If maybe they knew that Pharaoh's daughter was going to come out and find Moses. So probably there's a little bit of pre-planning going on.
I think there is.
But anyway, so they put Moses in a basket on the Nile River, and he goes and he meets Pharaoh's daughter, and she decides to raise him as her own kid. And then later on, Moses has become an adult. He's 40 years old now, and he sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, and so he murders the Egyptian and buries him in the sand.
Don't mess with my people, even though I haven't been living with my people. I don't even really know much about my people. Don't mess with my people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so he does that, comes back the next day, sees two Hebrews fighting, and he tells them to stop it. And they're like, "Are you going to murder us like you murdered that Egyptian?"
Who made you a judge over us?
Exactly. And so he runs away because he thinks, "Oh man, everybody knows now."
Which is ironic because 40 years later he's going to come back and he's going to be the judge over them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never thought of that. But
well, that's what I'm here for, son.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and get you a sip there, and I'll just talk about things. You might notice that the statue behind us is pointing towards something. We think that might be Moses, and we're not sure where he's pointing, but clearly.
Yep. So then Moses, he flees to Midian. And he gets married there, and he lives in Midian for a long time, 40 years.
Midian's basically the area around Mount Sinai, right?
That's my understanding, yeah.
They're just giving us some geographic context. So it's kind of across the Red Sea from Egypt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my understanding. So he flees over there, and that's where he has the whole burning bush experience, which makes sense. The burning bush is on Mount Sinai.
That's what. See, I knew when I asked the question. A lawyer never asks a question he doesn't know the answer to. And I knew that at least at one point, burning bush, he was on Mount Sinai.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he goes up on Mount Sinai. He sees this burning bush, and interesting thing about the burning bush.
Not that by itself.
It doesn't relate to the rest of this story at all, but we had a guy from Cameroon, Africa, come to my missions class at school last week. Cameroon. I hadn't heard of it before, but
it's in Africa.
It's in Africa. It's in West Africa.
West.
Right there on the coast.
Right on the coast.
Anyway, so he comes and he tells us that they'd always heard about this burning bush, but whenever they say the bush in Africa, they mean like the forest.
Please forgive me.
They mean the forest. So he thought Moses went up on this mountain and he sees this entire forest that's burning.
Looking down upon the forest. The forest fire.
Yeah, but he figured it out later.
Oh, he did.
And that's not what it meant because he told us.
Well, he's from Cameroon.
He is from Cameroon.
I'm glad he figured it out. Maybe you've shared this with us before, but for the good people out there, Moses' life can basically be divided into 3 40-year periods.
Yeah.
He dies at 120.
Mm-hmm.
First 40, he's in Egypt. Second 40, he's in Midian. Third 40, he gets the people, they head out, and they wander around the wilderness because they don't have faith. Just giving a little. I just thought I'd give that summary.
That was a good summary. Thank you, Dan. Thank you. So yeah, Moses, he's 80 years old by this point. He has this meeting with God, and God, in the burning bush, which is a singular bush.
Not a forest.
Not a forest. He tells Moses that he's heard the children of Israel crying out to him because they're in slavery in Egypt, and he's going to do something about it. And the thing he's going to do about it is he's going to send Moses to tell Pharaoh, "Let my people go." Like that, the song, you know.
I'm thinking. I think I'm like Moses. I'm thinking, okay, here I am, a shepherd, and you're sending me with my stick down there to Egypt to threaten the man who is like the world leader of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Let my people, I need you to let your entire workforce just go into the wilderness to worship God. I can see how Moses had doubts, and I hate to say that because I don't want to be a doubter, but okay, go ahead with your story.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
So Moses has his doubts, as you pointed out.
That
And God gives him these miracles that he's going to be able to do to confirm that this is actually God talking to him.
Good stuff, miracles.
Yeah, so he does several miracles. One where he like puts his hand in his coat and it comes out leprous, and then he puts it back in and the skin's fine again. One where he throws down the staff and he picks it up by the it becomes a snake. Then he picks it up by the tail and it becomes a staff again. Is there another one?
Well, he does the Red Sea thing. Oh, you're talking about just before Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Son, you should never put me on the spot like that. Those are the two biggies.
Yeah. So anyway, God gives Moses all these signs. Moses still doesn't want to go, and he says, "Can you just pick somebody else to go?" And God eventually is basically like, "I'll let your brother Aaron help you out with this one, but you're still going to go do it."
That's right.
And Moses does.
I like it when God says, "Who made your tongue?" Moses didn't say it. God said that, didn't he? God says to Moses, "Who made your tongue?" And it's pretty clear, Moses, if you'll just get your rear end to Egypt, I can wag your tongue for you. But Moses says, "I need somebody," so we got Aaron in the picture. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so after that, Moses leaves for Egypt.
Headed to Egypt.
He goes and he talks to his father-in-law, Jethro.
Beverly Hillbillies. Not the same guy.
No. And he picks up his wife and his kids from his father-in-law's house, and he takes them with him to Egypt. Although this is kind of a bit of a discrepancy in the story, I guess, because later on, Moses has to pick up his wife and kids from Jethro again. So apparently they didn't make it all the way to Egypt, I guess. But anyway, probably because of this story that we're about to read.
It's interesting, folks.
Yeah, so...
circumcise my son? It's almost like, in the Bible? Circumcise my son? In the Bible?
Yeah, so finally we've made it to the circumcision part of the story. Again, Exodus chapter 4, verses 24 and 26 through 26. It says, "At a lodging place on the way, the Lord met Moses and sought to put him to death. Then Zipporah took a flint and cut off her son's foreskin and touched Moses' feet with it and said, 'Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me.' So he let him alone. It was then that she said, 'A bridegroom of blood,' because of the circumcision."
Oh dear. You might want to ask the children to leave the room. Oh, my. So let me get this straight. So they're at a lodging place, and God's about to kill Moses.
Yeah.
Can we start there?
Yeah.
Good, because I'm really interested.
In fact, that kind of brings up the problems that I have with this story.
I've not seen these slides before, folks. I am just here for color.
Yeah, so the first problem that I have with this, from a Western perspective, is why would God tell Moses, go to Egypt, and then as Moses is doing what God says, immediately say, okay, now I'm going to kill you? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
It's not unlike that Balaam story.
Mm-hmm.
God says, don't go. They come back again. He says, okay, go. But don't you dare say something against my people. It's just like, and then along the way, we got the whole talking donkey thing. It's really confusing.
Mm-hmm.
But here, like you say, God says to him, he says, go to Egypt. By the way, I'm going to try to kill you along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, so that happens.
It's sad. I know. It's right there. You read it.
The second problem with this is if God was going to try to kill Moses, this goes along with the first problem, so it's like 1B.
Oh, 1B.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, if God was going to try to kill Moses, why didn't he do it before he called him? It makes sense that if God has some kind of grievance with Moses, he wants to get this out of the way, and so it kind of makes sense that maybe God would try to kill Moses, maybe for some reason. God can do what he wants.
Right. But maybe before the bush?
I would think.
Or even during the bush while the argument, and I'm just tired of this, Moses. I can, you're done.
Yeah, exactly. So you would think that God would, pick a different moment once Moses, before Moses is actually obeying his commands to murder him.
Before Moses is actually getting it right. And then in the middle of getting it right, God says, okay, you're out of here.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last problem is, why in the world does circumcising Moses' son fix the problem? Because
with a piece of flint.
It's a little weird.
Flint knife. That's not a surgical tool of our day and age. Just so you know, folks. A flint. I've seen knives that were made of flint.
You have?
Yes. You ever went arrowhead hunting and that kind of thing? Yeah. I just don't think. I don't really want to discuss the process that deeply.
Me neither. But,
okay.
It sounds painful.
Painful.
So anyway, to these problems, the problem that I really ran into is I have two solutions to these, but I don't think you can have both of them.
Oh, so it's one or the other.
And they don't both solve all the problems. So I don't know what to make of that.
If you're not going to solve the problem, I'm not watching anymore.
Okay.
No, go ahead. I'm at least curious as to your attempt at this.
All right. So solution number one is focusing on the circumcision aspect of all of this. It's the most common way of rationalizing this particular story.
Okay.
And so I thought I'd go with this one first.
So we're going back to Genesis?
Yes.
So this is pre-Moses.
Yeah.
By a long shot.
Even though we got a picture of Moses still up there. That's the Moses that was sculpted by Michelangelo.
Oh, Michael.
Yeah.
But it's appropriate that you have it because the context is about Moses, not Genesis 17.
Yeah, exactly. So, Genesis 17, 9 through 14, God is making a covenant with Abraham, and this is what he says. God said to Abraham, "As for you, you shall keep my covenant, and you and your offspring after you throughout their generations."
Which Moses would have been an offspring.
Yes.
Good.
He would have. I didn't point out all of this, but there's actually a section before this that I did not put on my slides where God tells he tells Abraham all the things that he's going to get out of this covenant with God, which include numerous offspring, which Moses is a part of. Verse 10, "This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your offspring after you. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between you and me. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised. Every male throughout your generations, whether born in your house or bought with your money, from any foreigner who is not of your offspring, both he who is born in your house and he who is bought with your money shall surely be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh, an everlasting covenant. Any uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant." So the most common explanation to this story is that the grievance God has with Moses is the fact that he has not circumcised his son, which makes sense in context, right?
It does.
That explains why circumcising the son solves the problem. But it doesn't really explain why God doesn't kill Moses on Mount Sinai. Why does God call Moses and then all of a sudden have this grievance with him of, you didn't circumcise your son, so now I'm gonna kill you. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
And why is it his wife points this out?
I don't know.
I mean, Moses, I guess you should have known better. He's got the relationship with God and all that kind of thing. Does it have anything to do with Jethro being, at some point, doesn't it say Jethro's a priest of the Most High God? Which we don't have any background, so we don't know what that means.
Well, he's a priest of Midian.
It doesn't say of the Most High God, just a
think
priest.
so. So there's, maybe he's pagan. I don't know. But what's interesting about this is circumcision was actually a lot more common in the ancient Near East than we give it credit for. We tend to think of circumcision as being something that only the Jews did.
Yeah.
Right? And I guess whenever God gives this command to Abraham, that's probably true. But by the time Moses is on the scene, it's not true anymore. Most of the nations around them do practice circumcision. The Philistines are pretty much the example of a culture in that time and area that don't circumcise. And so...
Are they the ones in the story where the guy throws all the foreskins?
You mean David?
Yeah.
He goes in and...
Yeah,
he circumcises 200 of them.
It Philistines, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, like Indians, they get scalps. David gets foreskins.
Yes. Yeah, so that's because Philistines didn't circumcise.
I get that.
Yeah.
Where else does David get them?
That's a good point.
Okay.
He just went and found them.
He just went and found those old boys.
Yeah. But anyway, so circumcision was actually a lot more common in the ancient Near East than we think of it being. And so Moses probably is circumcised, but not necessarily because he's a Hebrew, because the Egyptians practiced circumcision. So there's a fairly good chance that that's why he was circumcised. Of course, his mother keeps him for more than 8 days.
Sure.
If she's a law-following Hebrew, she would have circumcised him. But then you get this idea of the Midianites. They also practice circumcision, but they don't practice circumcision at the same time that the Jews practice circumcision. So that's why I have underlined here, he who's 8 days old among you shall be circumcised. God picks a particular day, largely because of the vitamin K that...
Prothrombin.
Is it?
My dad has drilled that into my head with his book on evidences.
Mm-hmm.
That's why God chose the 8th day, because that's when, I believe it's called prothrombin, is at its highest peak in a child's body. From that point on, it goes down.
Mm-hmm.
But on the 8th day, in a male child, there's this spike. I think it's called prothrombin. We'll have to go ask Papa after that. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the reason that's important is because of blood clotting.
Right.
And so
and if you're going to use a flint knife, blood clotting might be important.
Yeah, so they can, cut it off, and the blood clots, and so the baby doesn't bleed out. Still not a very fun practice, but
it does kind of play into the significance of the covenant, though, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going there? That she's going to say, Zipporah's going to say this basically, that you're a bridegroom of blood.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there might be a connection there with this whole idea about, you go back to Abraham, and God says, this is the thing that seals the covenant between us: a loss of blood, a cutting off, those kind of things, not unlike today, where, we got the blood of Jesus that had to be lost,
Mm-hmm.
the cutting off of our own personal sin that he takes care of us, Colossians chapter 2, and he circumcises our heart, by the way, that's in baptism. Those it's like he's projecting through history, almost like, in the Garden of Eden when he does the 7th day, there's going to be a rest. so the Sabbath thing becomes just an ongoing thing. Well, it's like circumcision has that history too, but it's like God continues to tweak it to have an even more spiritual meaning all the way through. It's really,
Yeah, definitely. And you kind of what the idea you get with circumcision is that this is the mark of God's covenant, right?
Yeah.
And so if you have been circumcised, at least as a Jew, you recognize this means that I am one of God's chosen people, right? And so in the New Testament, whenever we get the idea of baptism being a circumcision of the heart, the idea that you get is this is the new sign of the covenant, right? I am a part of God's chosen people now, not because I had some kind of cutting off of flesh, but rather because I've been washed in this baptismal experience. And so because of that, I made this covenant with God. And so the point is, from that point on, every time you have any kind of crisis in life or anything along those lines, or you question, am I really going to heaven or something along those lines, you can look back on your baptism, your circumcision of the heart, and say, yes, I chose to make a covenant with God, and I'm a part of this, and so I am one of God's chosen people. Obviously, you can choose not to be a part of God's chosen people anymore, but you can still look back on that and say, yeah, this is the moment whenever I made a promise to God that I was going to live for Him.
Yeah.
And so you kind of get this idea. And so with Moses, what seems to be going on here is the Midianites don't circumcise their children until they're of marrying age.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
You gotta be kidding. That made me not want to get married.
Yeah, and so likely what's going on here. Yeah.
Bless you. You bless a belch?
I guess so.
I mean, if we're dealing with circumcision.
Yeah. But likely what's going on here is either Zipporah or Jethro have convinced Moses that we're just going to go ahead and wait to circumcise your kids. Right? And so the idea is not really that Moses was never going to circumcise his son, but rather that he didn't do it at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And so because his son isn't circumcised, you have kind of this grievance that God has against him.
Right.
That's, your son isn't actually a part of this covenant that I've made with my people. That you're not abiding by these rules that I've given you. You're not really under this promise, and so your child deserves to be cut off because of something you did. Right? It's not his fault that he wasn't circumcised.
Yeah.
But you knew better and you didn't do it. So that's the usual argument for this passage, is that Moses fails to circumcise his son, and so because of that, God decides to murder him. Which I guess makes sense, that God would say, hey, you're supposed to be the leader of my people, and yet you're not even following my covenant.
Yeah.
And so we've got problems here.
Yeah, and I think also, and I don't know if this is like staying with your cultural theme or not, but we don't have the complete story. We don't have a play-by-play here. I mean, so isn't it possible too that Moses might have known better and he just hadn't got the job done, and he's on his way to Egypt, and you're supposed to represent me, the God of circumcision covenant, and you're denying the first premise of the covenant with Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
That's how those people even got to Egypt, and you're not even taking care of that one. And so there might have been, I think there could have been more to this story of Moses putting something off, like you indicated, maybe even just ignoring the holiness of God and what it is. I mean, it's not going to be the last time he's going to try to upstage God, if you think about it, And so Moses might, although he's supposed to be the meekest man on the earth, maybe he just, he dropped the ball here.
Yeah, and it could be that up until this point, Moses didn't really have any evidence of why he ought to follow God.
Good point.
Right?
Yeah.
This is the moment whenever he and God really have their first conversation, right? The first theophany that Moses is going to experience of many. And so it kind of makes sense that maybe Moses doesn't even really believe in the God of his ancestors, and then suddenly he's given this experience that inevitably confirms everything that he's heard up until this point. And what do you do with that? It makes sense that you would go home and you say, "Oh, I haven't been following all of his commands like I should have been up until this point, and so I'm going to fix that."
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe that's what's going on. Is God gave Moses this chance to, run home and circumcise his sons, and he didn't, and so now God is going to kill him because he didn't do the obvious thing. I don't know.
But I think maybe too, it's worth considering that Moses. I don't think it's like God sneaking around the camp just trying to find a private moment where he can kill Moses. I think it's more of a stand. I think it's more of a statement of, because you're not keeping this law, justice requires that I take your life. Zipporah steps in and says, "Hey, let's keep the law."
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how holy Zipporah is, if that kind of a thing, but I do find it interesting that there's one more time that a woman saves a man from himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you get into this less common answer.
This would be solution number 2.
Solution number 2. This one doesn't really solve the circumcision problem, I don't think, but it does answer the question of why would God wait until after calling Moses to attempt to kill him.
I'd like for you to address that, please.
All right, so I'm going to bring this back around to Moses.
It looks like you got rabbit ears.
Yeah.
I think they messed up this particular, what do they call that, a mosaic? See, I think these two things up here, I don't think they're supposed to be there.
Well, I think you're wrong. And,
are you going to explain to us why the guy's got rabbit ears?
Yeah, so in the King James Version, whenever it talks about the shining face of Moses, the King James translates, maybe not the current King James, but
one of the older ones.
One of the older ones. They translate it as horns. Moses.
Not rabbit ears.
Not rabbit ears, but horns. Moses goes up on the mountain and he talks with God, or into the tent of meeting and talks with God, and he comes out with horns.
With horns.
And so he puts a veil over his face.
I don't use the King James much.
I don't either, but because of that, a lot of Renaissance style paintings and older stuff that depict Moses, they have horns on his head. You can actually see.
Oh yeah, I can see him. He looks like a, what do you call those guys that?
Like a
with goat legs.
A satyr.
A satyr.
Yeah. Anyway, Moses did not have horns. His face was shiny.
Had to put a veil over it. I mean, think about that. What good would it be to put a veil over your horns?
I don't know.
They're still sticking. It's gonna.
He should have worn a hat.
Yeah, you put a hat. You wouldn't put a veil.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh dear.
Anyway, so that's why he has rabbit ears.
Anyway,
so back to the solution.
Please.
We talked about this already, but I'm going to read a little bit here. This is the story of Moses murdering a person. So Exodus chapter 2, verses 11 through 15a. It says, "One day when Moses had grown up, he went out to his people and looked on their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his people. He looked this way and that, and seeing no one, he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. When he went out the next day, behold, 2 Hebrews were struggling together, and he said to the man in the wrong, 'Why do you strike your companion?' He answered, 'Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?' Then Moses was afraid, and thought, 'Surely the thing is known.' When Pharaoh heard of it, he sought to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh and stayed in the land of Midian." So you kind of get this idea that, Moses did actually murder a guy, right?
He did.
It's, I don't know if it's really justified or not. Obviously, there is some level of defense of another person going on here, that the Hebrew slave is being beaten, and so obviously the Egyptian deserves some kind of
Restraint.
restraint, something like that. Yeah, he deserves to be beaten up.
We're not just going to restrain him. We're going to whoop him.
Equal force is.
Equal force. Yeah.
Yeah.
Eye for an eye, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that seems.
Moses went a little beyond that.
Yeah, that seems to be the indication, unless the Egyptian was beating this Hebrew to the point of death.
With intent to kill.
Yeah, and so.
Good point.
Anyway, Moses murders this guy. And because he committed murder, regardless, he kills the guy.
That's true.
Regardless if it's murder or not. Because he kills somebody, there's some level of punishment that is deserved on his part.
I agree.
And so in the Old Testament, the way that they would deal with this is that Moses would have to run off to a city of refuge.
Which has not yet been established because that doesn't come until the book of Numbers.
That's true. And then he would live there until the courts could deal with him, which is what we're going to talk about next.
Seriously.
So Numbers 35, verses 9 through 15.
I like this. See, that one, he looks like a Moses to me.
Yeah, no horns on that
No
guy.
horns on him. I like that one. Where are we at?
Numbers 35.
Numbers 35. Okay.
This is verses 9 through 15.
It's back here near the end of it.
It says, "And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the people of Israel, and say to them, When you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall select cities to be cities of refuge for you, that the manslayer who kills any person without intent may flee there. The cities shall be for you a refuge from the avenger, that the manslayer may not die until he stands before the congregation for judgment. And the cities that you give shall be your 6 cities of refuge. You shall give 3 cities beyond the Jordan, and 3 cities in the land of Canaan to be cities of refuge. These 6 cities shall be for refuge for the people of Israel, and for the stranger, and for the sojourner among them, that anyone who kills any person without intent may flee there." So you have this idea of cities of refuge, and the idea that somebody who kills somebody else, specifically without intent, can flee to this particular area. And as discussed just now, we don't actually know Moses' intention, right? We know Moses is trying to stop this Egyptian from hurting this Hebrew, but we don't know, is he actually trying to kill the guy, or, is he just trying to intervene, or what's going on? So maybe Moses is killing him without intent. What this essentially means is Moses then goes and he flees to the land of Midian. And so the argument goes that the land of Midian then becomes Moses' city of refuge, or place of refuge, because it's more than just a city, it's a whole country. But Midian becomes this place of refuge for Moses, and so he lives there, and he's in refuge there for a long time, and then God calls Moses to go back to Egypt to bring his people out of Egypt. And because Moses leaves the land of Midian, which is his city of refuge, it means that all of a sudden we have to deal with this problem that's come up, that you actually are a murderer.
So we got to deal with your trial.
Yeah, and we couldn't deal with it before because you were in refuge, but now you're not in refuge anymore, so we need to deal with this. Again, that doesn't solve the problem of why circumcision would have anything to do with it. What I've read kind of indicates that the circumcision, the blood of the circumcision rather, kind of acts like the blood of the Passover lamb, that Moses gets that blood on him, and because of that, the city of refuge extends to just wherever Moses is, and so he doesn't have to worry about being killed anymore for killing this Egyptian. I don't know if I actually buy that.
Especially since all of that is post-story. Mm-hmm. The Passover lamb hasn't happened yet. We haven't had the cities of refuge established. Now, it probably was a custom at the time. I get that. But we haven't had those established yet. All of that kind of thing.
Yeah, and so you kind of get this... certainly Moses is fleeing to Midian for refuge.
Definitely.
That is definitely what's going on. He's not fleeing for refuge from God, though.
True.
He's fleeing for refuge from Pharaoh. And the indication is that in numbers, these cities of refuge are a legal thing, that the manslayer can flee to these places, and the Avenger of Blood can't do anything about it.
Right.
They just can't go in and murder this guy because he's in that particular city. You actually see this come up kind of at the beginning of First Kings, whenever what is it? David is dying, and he tells he gives Solomon this whole list of people that he needs to kill for political reasons, or just they wronged me in the past, so you got to kill him, right? Yeah, it's not David's brightest moment,
right?
But anyway, it happens. One of these guys, Solomon says to him, "You're going to go to this city, and you're going to leave it and live in this city." And then whenever you leave the city, I'm going to kill you. And so stay in the city for as long as you want to, but as soon as you leave, you're going to die. Right? And so this guy lives in the city for a number of years, and then he has some kind of animal that gets out. I should have read this passage before talking about it. He has an animal that escapes, and he goes out looking for it and has to leave town. And because of that, Solomon kills him because he left town. So you get kind of this same idea that the concept of the city is really what's going on here. The legal power of as long as you're in this city, nobody can touch you or do anything to you. And that's not exactly what's going on with Moses. What seems to be going on with Moses is actually he flees to Midian, and Pharaoh doesn't know where he went.
Yeah.
And I guess Pharaoh doesn't care enough to search for him, and so. It's just kind of a moot point that at that point, Moses isn't going to die because Pharaoh's not going to do anything about it. But you kind of get the same idea. The same thing is kind of going on here. That Moses, because of his crime, his killing, is fleeing to another place so that this killing won't be avenged. And then you have this judgment scene. That God comes and he's going to kill Moses, and instead of killing Moses, Moses' wife circumcises his son, and that causes God to let Moses off scot-free. And I don't know if that all fits very well, but I thought that was more interesting than the usual answer, so I decided to put it in.
It was very interesting. I keep coming back to Zipporah. I don't know much about this woman.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't give us a lot, but it's pretty big, I think, that number one, she spotted the problem. I don't know, maybe God told her. Mm-hmm. But number two, she takes action on solving the problem on behalf of Moses. But number three, and maybe we're going to deal with this, she kind of puts it in Moses' face, like, hey man, you have put our family in a bad spot here. Mm-hmm. Now, again, that's not really Sarah-like, I guess, because Sarah, according to 1 Peter chapter 3, she probably wouldn't have taken that approach. But at the same time, Moses needed this lesson because it sounds like God was going to kill him. Yeah. And Zipporah stood between him and death.
Yeah, exactly. And so kind of what you see is maybe you can combine the two concepts here, that maybe it's not about Moses' murder, it's actually about the circumcision here. But it could be that the city of refuge thing still applies, that this is the reason God doesn't kill him, is because he's over here in hiding, and he needs to come out of hiding before he's liable to some kind of judgment.
Right.
So that could be. But yeah, your concept here of Zipporah standing between Moses and death is interesting, because that's what happens over and over throughout the story of the book of Exodus.
Yeah, it is.
You get Zipporah in this first instance. Well, really at the very beginning, you get the midwives. They stand in between Pharaoh, who's going to kill these babies, and the babies. And so they save these kids from being killed because they're willing to stand in that gap.
Good point.
You get Zipporah here, who's willing to stand between, this, I guess, death angel, and Moses, willing to, keep him from being killed. Later on, you get the blood of the Passover lamb
Yeah.
that stands between the death angel and all the children of Israel who put the blood on their doorways. You get Moses, who stands between God and Israel and says, what are the Egyptians going to say if you kill these people?
Right.
Right? And so you get this idea that over and over you have these intermediaries that are going
Right.
between some force that's going to bring about death and the people that are going to die. And they stand in that gap and they rescue these people from
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
And-
Was it Phinehas? The guy who rushed into the camp and stuck them, the two guys, the guy and the girl who were doing it, and right there. And he
Yes.
ended the plague or something, remember?
Yeah.
That's much later, but...
Yeah,
There's a-
and you get that. There's another time, whenever, I think it's Korah's rebellion, maybe. It was one of the rebellions, but there's this plague that comes on the people because of this rebellion. And so God basically tells Aaron, you've got to go and make this sacrifice
Yeah,
to
yeah.
atone for the people.
Yeah.
And it says Aaron has to run
Right.
to do this sacrifice. And, for every second that he's not, making the sacrifice, not atoning for the sins of the people, there's more people dying.
Right.
Right? And so you get this idea that there are certain characters throughout Scripture that have to stand between people and their ultimate demise. Right? And the ultimate example of this, obviously, is Jesus.
Sure.
Right? Jesus, he is our city of refuge. He's the one that we run to say, you can save me from all of this. And so he's the one that stands in that gap, that we all deserve death. And yet he is willing to stand there and take that for us and make sure that we don't actually have to die, even though that's what we deserve. But at the same time, that's also kind of our own responsibility. Right? That's the responsibility that we have for other people. That we look at them and we say, everybody has sinned, everybody deserves death, and that includes me, but it also includes you. And if you don't have Jesus standing in that gap for you right now, you need to put him there, right? And so you kind of stand in that gap yourself in a way by saying, I'm going to be the one that's going to help you find the one who can ultimately stand in that gap for you.
James talks about the prayer of a faithful person covering a multitude of sins, standing in the gap.
Yeah, exactly. And so you get this theme of the intermediary, this person that goes and they rescue others from this calamity, this death. And ultimately you get that with Abraham as well.
Sure.
And what you see is God goes to Abraham in Genesis 12 and he says, I'm making this covenant with you, this promise, and the promise is you are going to bless all the nations, right? You bless everybody in the whole world. And we always interpret that as being Jesus, because it is. But at the same time, there's a lot more going on there, right? Abraham, he doesn't just say, okay, God promised that someday I'll have this kid that is going to bless all the nations. He's also promising I'm going to, right? And so Abraham goes out and he tries to bless the nations. And so you get this idea with Sodom and Gomorrah that these people are definitely deserving of death, right? And God is going to kill them, but Abraham stands in the way.
Right.
He
That's
says,
right.
If there's only 10 righteous people, are you going to wipe out the whole city and risk killing these 10 righteous people? And he talks God down, and eventually God does go and kill everybody, right? Because Abraham didn't go far enough down with his numbers.
He needed to get down to 3.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's what we're called to do, right?
Right.
Galatians chapter 3 talks about this idea of, those of us who are of faith, who are Christ's, are Abraham's, his true offspring.
Yeah.
And so, we are called to be the true Israel, the ones that are actually fulfilling this promise that God made to Abraham. That means we're the ones that are supposed to stand in that gap.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be intermediaries between God and other people.
What an assignment.
Yeah.
And for those of us who have placed our faith in Jesus, we are living in the city of refuge. What happens if we decide to leave the city of refuge?
We get killed.
My point is, when you go with once saved, always saved, and some of the other doctrines like that, it's amazing if you just allow the harmony of the Bible to speak. God has been setting up this whole idea of an intermediator. You can go all the way back to practically Adam, where you see these mediators, whoever the intermediators, like you've identified, all the way up to Jesus. And it's like God is giving us this repeated message of somebody standing between you and death, somebody standing, and then God says, I'll be that person. Mm-hmm. And he comes, lives among us, and he becomes our city of refuge. Okay? What has happened up to this point if the person rejected their city of refuge? They died. Mm-hmm. What would happen to you and I if we reject our city of refuge? We'd die. And so, again, it plays in the face of this once saved, always saved doctrine, because, yes, you can choose to leave the city of refuge. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're a puppet that doesn't have the free will to operate. And puppets can't worship.
Yeah. And, Hebrews chapter 10 talks about this idea of, how much worse is it going to be for you if you trample underfoot, the blood of the Son of God himself, right? And so there's kind of this indication throughout most of Hebrews that once saved, always saved isn't really a thing, but it's almost a step shy of that, right? It's this, once you're saved, you are saved until the moment you decide you don't want to be anymore, and then you're not, right? And there's no coming back from that, right? You go off into apostasy, and that's it. And that kind of seems to be the indication of Hebrews, and other places seems to be the indication is, we got to bring people back from that before they cross that line.
Wow.
Right? And certain people, they cross that line, and there's no coming back for them.
Right.
Right? And so you have to make sure that you don't allow your brothers and sisters to cross that line, because it kind of seems that the indication is not once saved, always saved. It's once lost, always lost, at least for the second time.
Yeah, the seared conscience that Paul will speak of. Wow. Yeah, so Jesus is our city of refuge. It's interesting to me how tonight you've shown several of these threads. The circumcision thread, which we dealt with, that all the way through till you get to Colossians chapter 2, and looky there. Even we as New Testament Christians are to be circumcised of the heart. This idea of the city of refuge, and Jesus being that city of refuge. And then he says in 1 John chapter 1, we must walk in the light. May I say, stay within the city of refuge. There's some powerful stuff here, but to stay with our theme, it all seems to be shaped by this cultural context in order for us to understand at a particular time in biblical history what that's saying to those people. It's kind of like this morning in your sermon about Isaiah that I thought was really phenomenal. But how Isaiah he even talks about this idea that there's somebody who is saying, make straight the path, and we always say, well, that's John the Baptist. And it was. But at the time Isaiah writes it, it's Isaiah. It's like God just keeps giving us these illustrations all the way through. So people who are like me, who are practically brain dead, you look back over your shoulder and say, oh man alive, look at all the times he's taught me this lesson. I just wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, and the thing that I love about that idea is you look back at all of these amazing things that happen in Scripture, and we, especially prophecies, but we look at them and we say, that's talking about Jesus, so it can't be talking about anything else.
Yeah.
Right? But if it's actually talking about a whole host of things that includes Jesus, he's the ultimate fulfillment,
right,
then that can include me too.
Yes.
Right? And
yes.
I can fit into this story and be a part of it. And, it's obviously I'm not the main character, right? We're one small piece of this story that's really Jesus' story, but at the same time, we get to fit in.
Yeah.
We get to be a part of this. And so whenever it says, a voice of one crying out in the wilderness, that's talking about John the Baptist. It's also talking about Isaiah, and it's talking about us.
Yeah,
right? We get to be this voice of one crying out in the wilderness, make straight paths, because Jesus is coming back.
Yes,
right? He is going to bring his kingdom here.
Yeah, that's good. And it almost gives me goosebumps. And then at the same time, I'm convicted by it, because I think, how many times has God got to hit me over the head with it before I wake up and smell the coffee and say, oh yeah, so that's what you're talking about. And I think the reason we don't get it earlier is because we're not paying attention. It's not because God isn't obvious. It's just we're not. If we spent more time in the book, like you're allowing us to do with this series, if we spent more time in the book, reading these things over and over, and we saw all of these threads that are connected throughout Scripture, eventually the light bulb would go off in our heads. Mm-hmm. It's this morning in my class, I was talking about Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 4 through 9, the Shema, where it talks about when you rise up, when you lie down, when you walk along the path. All day long, you need to be talking about God. Why? Because we're practically brain dead, and if we don't get these daily minute by minute reminders, we're not going to be people who get it. Mm-hmm. You got to get in the book. Thank you for what you're teaching us.
Welcome. All right, so to our SBS students, here's your questions again. I think we answered all of them. Hopefully we did. Yeah. And then, thank you. And don't forget to keep in touch with us. We got an Instagram account at RestorationCast. That's up here. You can visit our website, which is www.restorationschoolofbiblicalstudies.com.
That's enough.
Yeah, you can also visit sunnychilds.com.
Takes you to the same place.
Yeah, Restoration School of Biblical Studies is a page on sunnychilds.com, I think.
Yeah, but it's actually also the homepage. You see, that's the first thing that pops up. So if you go here, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, and we've got a new monthly newsletter called Restored that we're sending out. I hope to send it out this week sometime because I'm actually late already. Second newsletter I've sent out. Anyway, so if you want to request one of those, go ahead and you can DM me on the Instagram or comment on this video you're watching right now or something along those lines, and I will do my best. You'll have to send me your address, but I'll do my best to send you one of those copies of our
postal.
newsletter. Yes.
So if you're in a foreign country, foreign for me, if you're in a country other than the United States, we can't send it out to you right now.
Yeah. If you do want it and you're in another country, go ahead and request it, and we'll try to send you a digital copy. We can't send it print, but we'll do our best to work with you. Anyway, so have a good night.
In the Bible? Just let it through that.